After the massacre of the Atreides, the imperials are incinerating any remains of their existence. The emperor has no words on what happened, even though he gave out the order. He loved the duke like a son, but his lust for power guided his actions. It wasn't the first time the Harkonnens did the empire's dirty work. Before you continue, make sure you watch part 1 of the story in the link down below. Meanwhile, Paul wakes up where there are enemies nearby. They leave a decoy for Harkonnen troops while they call for worms. The troops sense the danger and fly to high ground, but they are sniped off one by one. Bodies are dropped down below, and Paul and his mom are spotted by one of the Harkonnens. Paul beats him in a duel before his mom brutally saves him from another man. Shortly after, Jessica is sick from being pregnant. The bodies are finally rounded up and swallowed by the worm. In the city of Arrakeen, the capital of Arrakis, Lord Rabbat is informed of the massacre at the hands of the Fremen, and he violently lashes out at his commander. Meanwhile, the Fremen reach their base. There is a great deal of unrest within the people due to Paul's presence as well as Jamis' dead body. Some think Paul is the Messiah, others just view him as a murderer. The elders have a meeting and the leader pledges his life for Paul, who is outside plotting his revenge. He sees visions of being worshipped, and the non-believers mock him, but the girl defends him. Finally, Jessica is called inside. Jamis goes through a funeral process, and his body releases its water into their sacred lake. The leader asks Jessica to take the place of the dying Reverend Mother. She is forced to accept or be banished, and put through a ritual where she is given centuries of memories and pain. Paul is still being mocked by the people, but this time the leader Stilbert shuts them up. Jessica back inside is forced to drink poison, and she dies because she is pregnant. She is reborn because of a trick she pulled with her powers. While there is arguing among the people, Paul declares to everyone that he's not the Messiah. Later on, Jessica reveals that her daughter talks to her and thinks that he's the Messiah, but he needs to drink the same poison in order to be reborn as the Messiah. Stilbert teaches Paul their ways as Paul must survive in the desert alone to prove himself. The girl thinks he'll die and that upsets her. Paul ventures out alone, or so we thought. The girl follows him and teaches him everything from the way they walk to the equipment they use. Obviously, he begins falling for her. Jessica, meanwhile, plots to convince all the non-believers that Paul is the one so that they would all protect him. Later on, Harkonnen forces are searching for the Fremens. They are caught in traps laid by the Fremens before they're ambushed, and all the ground troops are killed. A helicopter arrives and takes out a few, which makes them all scatter. Paul and the girl try to blow it up, but they're interrupted as Paul takes out 2 men. He causes a distraction by offering himself as a decoy while the girl shoots the helicopter, and they proceed to blow up the entire Harkonnen ship. Back home, the Fremen people celebrate and are all impressed by Paul's skills. He tells them of his family's struggle with the Harkonnens, and how he lost his family to them. Finally, he urges them to fight boldly to finally eliminate the Harkonnens. He's given a Fremen name, Usul, and he chooses his own war name, Muad'Dib, and with that, he's finally accepted into the Fremen. Paul shares a moment with the girl as he tells her where he's from. They both bond before they finally kiss as they journey on together. The Fremens take out more Harkonnens, while they bond even more, and more attacks follow. At the Harkonnens' home planet, they hear screams coming out of the Lord's room. Rabban is then scolded by his uncle for his failure to kill the Fremen and revive the spice trade. Meanwhile, Paul experiences nightmares where he sees visions of death. The girl Chani tells him to focus on the big day ahead. He is put to the test by calling for a worm, but a huge one arrives, way bigger than anyone expected, and he's supposed to try and ride it. He struggles to do so, but finally succeeds in the end, and the people rejoice. The people all now believe in him, which is just as prophesied. Paul's mother is informed of his triumph, and that it was the biggest worm anyone has ever seen. Jessica orders the spread of the word so that everyone can believe that her son is the Messiah. The people are split into 2. Those going south for safety, and those going north to fight. Jessica wonders why Paul doesn't believe in himself as the prophet, and Paul accuses her of spreading dangerous stories about him before they depart. The spice depot is blown up and 80% of the storage is lost. Rabbat is enraged and sets out to finish the Fremen off. He fails right away as they are taken out one by one before they make a run for it. Rabbat escapes while everyone else is massacred. He's followed by one Fremen and is barely saved from him. Back in the Imperial Palace, Princess Hirulon advises her father not to use direct force against the Fremen as it will only strengthen religious beliefs. Meanwhile, a more brutal Harkonnen is put in charge. He immediately kills everyone around him. One Atreides is taken to fight in the gladiator games. The last 3 Atreides are put to fight. The first 2 are limping towards him, and he kills them with ease. The third one holds his own, and this prompts the warrior to take off his armor. The guards try to interfere, but he screams at them, displaying his sense of honor. Finally, he kills him and sends him off. Later on, he's offered Arrakis by Lord Baron. While walking through the halls, he's followed by one of the Gesserites. She puts him through the same ordeal as Paul with the hand in the box. She later reveals that he's a sociopath who lusts for blood and violence, but can be controlled, as she already bears his child. The warrior, Fade, is then honored and given official charge of Arrakis. Back on the desert planet, Gurney is still alive. He moves through the desert and finds a Harkonian ship and a group of fighters. He appears to be confused about the situation, and he's swiftly taken down by a familiar friend. Gurney is in disbelief when he discovers that Paul is alive. They join each other in travel, and Gurney stresses to him that he must go to war. As they rest at night, Gurney tells Paul that he knows where the Atreides house's atomic weapons are. Paul tells Chani about the arsenal and the possibility of using it to destroy any target he wishes. They spot the location of the weapons and enter the vast temple. Jessica arrives at the scene. A woman catches a small worm and extracts poison from it. She is then ordered to give it to Paul when he arrives. Paul, meanwhile, has nightmares, and he wakes up to them being a reality. Their home is being destroyed by Harkonnen forces under Fade's command. Rabban confronts his little brother, but he is quickly taken down and humiliated. In the aftermath of the massacre, people are either wounded or dead. A war council is called with all of the elders. Paul is given the leader's place, but he refuses to travel south. He orders everyone else to go, intending to stay and fend them off. He experiences visions of what will happen, and Chani convinces him to join. Having no other choice, he decides to join them south. The Harkonnens swoop into the place, and Fade is impressed with one warrior who killed 9 men with a single blade. His sadistic nature, however, makes him incinerate her. The rest of the people ride south, but Paul steers away and goes to the temple. He drinks the poison, which is forbidden for men, and begins seeing visions. Jessica arrives, and Chani follows. She finds Paul dying, but eventually he wakes up, and everyone bows to him. After making sure he's fine, she slaps him and leaves. Later on, he tells his mother what he saw. Jessica is Lord Baron's daughter. It turns out they're all Harkonnens. Paul, back with the Fremen, is now basically worshipped. Chani tries to stop the council from happening, claiming that the prophecy is false, but no one listens to her. Gurney pulls her away, so she doesn't get in trouble. Jessica arrives at the council, and Paul follows after. He riles up the people, but they believe that he's the prophet. It appears that he's gone insane as he takes charge to lead the people. He declares war. The Emperor discovers that Paul is alive and challenging him, and the princess questions his decision to eradicate House Atreides. Chani packs up her stuff and leaves, and they launch an attack on the Harkonnens. They plan the attack to hit when the Emperor arrives. Lord Baron, in a surprise twist, is taken out by the Emperor while his family watches. Meanwhile, worms are being called from everywhere. They rally their troops and fire their atomic weapons, and the worms arrive through the storm. An all-out attack is launched, and there is carnage everywhere. They storm into the throne room, and Paul executes Lord Baron. He lets the Emperor go, and all while the battle outside rages on. Gurney is going crazy on the battlefield, and he finally kills Rabban. Lord Baron's body is thrown into the desert to rot, while the Emperor is brought forth in front of Paul. Paul threatens to blow up the spice fields and even uses the voice against the Reverend Mother. He announces that he'll take the princess's hand in marriage, and Chani is visibly hurt. Paul is challenged to combat, and he fights Fade, his cousin. In a highly skilled matchup, they go back and forth until Paul is stabbed. This doesn't stop him as he manages to get Fade back and kill him. He becomes the Emperor, and everyone bows down. Paul looks at Chani one last time as he is victorious, but at what cost? The people rejoice, but now the holy war is about to begin. We finally reach the conclusion, but we're still left wanting more. What's going to happen next? What about the holy war? All questions will probably be answered in the unconfirmed but probable sequel. Well, this brings us to the end of today's video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel to get more videos like this one. Your support helps us grow. And tell me what you think about this film. What do you think about the overall conclusion of the story? Do you think the path Paul went down was justified, or do you think the story went a little like the final season of Game of Thrones? Let me know in the comments below. I read all of them. And if you're watching till now, thank you. I'll see you in another video soon.